So what do I mean by found form? A found form can be any form that's not meant to be literary, right? So a great place to start looking is your junk mail. What's in your junk mail? So do you have credit card invitations? Do you have bill statements? Do you have rental agreements? Who knows, right? So thinking, walk all around your house, start looking at found forms. So you might have grocery lists, you might have Christmas cards, the text inside of a Hallmark card can be a found form. Think about the newspaper even. So a straight newspaper news reporting, that can be a found form. Also within the newspaper you might find obituaries, you might find classified ads, horoscopes, crossword puzzles even. At school I might find tests or study guides would be found forms. Maybe a multiple choice test. I once wrote a story kind of in the form of a Cosmo quiz, right? What else could be a found form? Court papers of any sort could be a found form. The small print in just about anything could be a found form. Nutritional information, any kind of agreements, internet agreements, maybe terms of use is a found form. Email correspondence could possibly be a found form. A letter is a very basic, but also I would say a found form. So feel free to take a moment to shut this video off and take a little walk around your house and in your backpack and in your purse and in your locker and find as many found forms, non-literary found forms as you can. Okay, so maybe you have some really fun things that I've never even thought of. My favorite activity used to be walking in front of this middle school that I used to live near and picking up papers off the ground, and they were all found forms. They were love letters, they were those notes you passed to one another, they were tests, quizzes, report cards, field trip permission slips, you name it, right? So whatever you found, great. So think about all of these found forms as a possible container for flash fiction. Now, why does this happen? Why can we make this happen in flash fiction? Well, obviously, if you were going to write a novel-length book in the form of court proceedings, it would probably get somewhat tedious, right? So one of the joys of flash fiction, one of the things that I think make people really love flash fiction, is that there are things you can do in flash fiction, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more when we talk about experimental forms, but there are things you can do in flash fiction that you could not do in other forms because of the length, right? Because it's short, because it's contained, the reader will allow you to play with them in this way for these short amount of times. So consider creating a piece of flash fiction that fits into one of these found forms. Another thing that I'd like you to pay attention to are titles. And I'll continue to talk about titles, but a title in flash fiction, especially when you have this limited number of words, this small little compact space that you're working in, the title can actually be a really potent piece of information, even more so than in a regular story. So for instance, a great story that I love by a writer named Sarah Russell is called Mother's Last Wishes. The title is called Mother's Last Wishes, and the story, and I'll provide it for you, is a letter from a mother to her children with her last wishes in it. But of course, the story unfolds in the letter. But without having that title, Mother's Last Wishes, we wouldn't necessarily get it. A lot of writers don't give titles the importance that I think that they could. I think that sometimes, we go back to high school when we just kind of threw a title on there at the last step and didn't really give it lots of careful consideration. So I want your title to not just be an afterthought, but to actually be a really important piece of information, almost like a sentence before the sentence begins. Almost like the first impression we're going to get of the story. So don't throw them away. And it doesn't mean that they have to be like super long titles. I know people that love super long titles. I like long titles, and sometimes that works. But sometimes it's a short title that gives a very specific piece of information, right?